The Rock and Roll and Coffee Show is brought to you by Retroactive, located at Broadway at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, taking you back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. ShopRetroactive.com. Pick up your bottle of the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show Hot Rockin' Hot Sauce now at Retroactive or rnrcoffeeshow.com.
It's the Rock and Roll and Coffee Show. Yeah, with Joe.
You know, you and I have crossed paths before.
Okay.
Now, see if you recognize this guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did. Yeah.
This picture, I like to go through when I have a guest on. I like to go through all my old stuff and see what I
It
have.
must be around 1989.
Exactly. When these photos were taken back then, they put the dates on the back, and it's August 1989.
Okay.
So that was, you guys were in Tampa, and I think you were playing with Cinderella.
You definitely would have been, yeah.
Yeah. So that was at a Peaches record store. You were doing an in-store.
In-store record store. I mean, that's, like vintage stuff. I mean, that's what bands used to do. This is what bands used to interact with fans of the band and the music. This is where you two used to exchange a few little words about your music and how people appreciate it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you left with some sort of understanding that what you had done has somehow affected people and it made them smile and made them happy and so on, stuff like that. Now it's now it's guessing, and now those who came to the record store are adults and they sit and watch this on the internet.
Yeah. Do you do many in-stores now or no?
Well, there are no stores.
Well, we have one here in Myrtle Beach. So if you ever get over to Myrtle Beach.
I would do that if I was playing there at that time and one could come around and, hang out for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, talk to, whoever showed up. But, it's becoming, what really hit me was years ago, the first time when I walked into Walmart, AC/DC had released what was called Black Ice and things like that. And, you see this, cardboard cutout of Angus Young. And I just said, okay, well, rock and roll has come to Walmart, and, which means all the small mom and pop stores are gone.
It's a sad thing. It's fun. Speaking of rock and roll in Walmarts, I met Striper at a Kmart back in the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of us go to find sanity there because it is a good reflection of what goes on in real life. I have not ever had a life where I could escape real life, meaning that either you're so much on the high level that you're constantly surrounded by, people serving you, people opening the doors, people arranging everything for you, et cetera, et cetera. That's one of the things that I've never been able to let go of, no matter what level I was on. Hands-on, I mean, I have to do my own laundry. I just feel it's just sort of where you let go of real. I understand somebody said, well, I'm a hotel lobby, I don't have enough time, but there's somehow you can keep it under control if you plan it. And in many ways, it keeps me still awake at night because I go through all forms of logistics. Us now going out on a 2-month US tour, just basically the band, but many fans or many spectators or people coming to the club, they don't necessarily have to be fans, sort of relates to the name that once represented an arena act. And now you're playing in a side room to a Mexican restaurant. Not that there's anything wrong with a side room to a Mexican restaurant. The fact is just there's 2 lights that are turned on for the next 2 hours, and they're not going to switch. And up on stage is the singer from White Line and 3 new guys, and we're going through, I mean, it's just what it is.
Yeah. Was that difficult to adjust to when you went from like the arenas and now you're doing the smaller clubs and Was that transition from the stardom to the back down a little bit difficult?
No, not for me. It was probably the most natural thing because when when I closed down White Lion in September of 91, I already were moving on to my next step. Not that I'd ever wished for that step to happen, but circumstances led to that. And we can get into that another day. It's not necessarily that's that interesting, but when you look at it, that things around you affect you, that you basically prepared to shut down your own dream that had become reality. And we had ended up playing Madison Square Garden. We had ended up selling millions of records. We had toured the world. We played Japan. We had played with our heroes, and we had become heroes for other bands. When you shut that down, there's got to be something more to it. And also, all those people around you, all those people involved, don't try to fight it. So that will be an episode in itself. So I already knew, coming from my own background of very, very little, a poor divorced family, my mom raising 3 boys in a rough neighborhood. She worked, managing, a bar that was open all night and stuff like that. I was so in touch with what the streets were about and everything else, and what an empty refrigerator was. So when I started this new band called Freak of Nature, which lasted 3 albums and up till 1995, it was going to be built upon what it would require for a band to stick together, meaning that everybody sort of have to be equal from the start. White Line hadn't been like that, but it's also Vito and I had sort of started the band and had the band for almost 3 years before the band really became the known band on Pride, Big Game, and Main Attraction. So I said, I got to get that back down to the rawest, coldest basement foundation. And if we function there, we will function when gold are thrown at us. We never got to the time when gold were thrown at us. We got to the time when other things were thrown at us. So therefore, coming back, all those steps after Freak of Nature, I went solo in 1996, and up until 2 years ago, releasing 14 solo albums, touring around the world with an acoustic guitar with a White Lion ghost chasing me everywhere I was. I came through the front door, met the people in the bar, walked through the audience, up on stage, did the 2 hours, went down to a table in the corner, sold the T-shirts and the CDs, took pictures with the fans, and went back to the hotel room. And next morning I started the car and went to another one. That was what it was taking for me to do that. So because I was very familiar and comfortable with that, to me, it became an adventure where I even took my oldest son with me twice through the US and all that kind of stuff. So there's different ways of looking at it positive and getting something out of it and making it the story of your songs and the life you're living. And then you might be getting to it, but then, and then suddenly you can simply shake that White Lion ghost. And I figured out that the only way I could deal with it was that I made the sound of the White Lion songs today. Because when I walked out on stage with the first album, which is a year and a half ago, I was just about to turn 62 years old. When I walked out at the first Kiss show when the Pride album was released, I was 26. And, I'm a bit of a different person because I've seen life and life has seen me and so and so. So as every solo album has been sort of like an exit on the freeway that you turn off, you sit there and, reminiscence of your own life, look back and where you're going and stuff like that. I wanted the songs to be as close to the original as possible, of course, in the guitar playing. But I also knew that now it is the singer coming back from the journey on the 7 seas and he has a lot of tales to tell. It's not going to be told in the lyrics, but it's going to be told in the way the lyrics are being told.
Now, you said a year ago you did the Songs of White Lion, the first record, and now you have the second volume 2 coming out on the 23rd of August.
Yeah.
Was there always a plan to do a second record?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't. When I went in to record that album, it was almost just to say, well, here you go, folks. I did it. Is this what you wanted from me, or so and so? I wasn't planning to tour with the band. I wasn't necessarily, I thought that maybe I could put it to rest somehow. And then, as we were in the studio and the songs are coming together and I hear the band and stuff like that, and now I'm singing them in a total different key. I feel at home in a different way. I don't feel like I'm up there representing a story from 30 years or 35 years ago. I actually like these songs that I wrote with Vito back in the 80s. I mean, this is great. This feels good. This feels where I am right now. And many people have said that both about the first and especially also the second. This album is today. It doesn't sound like these songs are 80s songs, because now the image and the MTV video and maybe also a little bit of that very high vocal that was a signature of the 80s for many bands, not just me. Now it's like, this sounds like a grown men playing rock and roll and stuff like that. And so once we started playing, I asked Frontiers how they felt about going for a second one. And then, the first one could be what you call the classic set list.
Mhm.
It's like,
That was
you go
more
to
of the hits.
you go to AC/DC, you know what they're gonna play.
Yeah.
Go to see White Lion or stuff like that, you know what it's sort of going to play. But White Lion is also a band that, compared to a lot of other our competitors or our friends from the 80s, we had some big musical songs and stuff like that, sort of deep inside represented where the band, especially Vito and I, wanted to take the band. Lady of the Valley, Lights and Thunder, El Salvador and stuff like that. So obviously the second album, that was what that was going to be represent,
Yeah. Yeah. I think the album's great. This volume 2. And that could be partly because I think there's 5 songs from Main Attraction on there, and that was my favorite White Lion album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one of those. And it's like, Vito and I spent almost a year writing Main Attraction because we had spent 2 weeks writing Big Game and never had a chance to live with the music, never had a chance to play the songs in a rehearsal room before we recorded. It's just one of those classic stories. When we went in to record the Pride album, we had played those songs for 2 years in the clubs. We knew them backwards, inside, whatever it was. You could wake us up in the middle of the night. What's the first line and third verse? And it was that kind of familiarity. Then you almost 2 years, and then you're asked to deliver a record to the record company very quickly and something like that. And then you realize, but we don't have the time. We haven't even started writing a thing about that. We're still on the Pride tour, so we knew we weren't going to repeat that with the Main Attraction album. And unfortunately, by the time that album came out, things were changing in the music business. Things were changing on MTV. You suddenly felt like an outcast.
Yeah. How difficult was it changing these songs to a different key? Because that's not an easy thing to do sometimes.
No, I can see you're a musician yourself.
Yes.
With the instruments on the back. I mean, obviously it was no problem for me. I just have to sing them. But Marcus Nan, the guitar player, he took that incredibly serious, because without comparing, without putting, one of the greatest things for music in history, like Mozart or Beethoven, you can't play those things in another key. They're written, that's the way they wrote them. That's the way it is. Vito Bratta's guitar parts are very, very unique, and especially the soloist. It's not just something, there's a reason why he played them there. But Marcus knew that this is what it was going to take for us to do. And I don't think I would have found another guitar player who would have done it, who would have put the time in, or who could have done it. There was a time early on in the mid to late, 2006, stuff like that, when I was reaching out to a couple of the more sort of known guitar players that came from the same time. Nobody wanted to touch Vito Bratta.
Sure. Well, Vito, I mean, he's got a sound and a style of his own. And I think Marcus captures that. Like a lot of guitar players can probably play what Vito played, but they can't make it sound the way he makes it sound, you know? And I think
No,
Marcus is pretty right there on that.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. Marcus knew from the start. Marcus is a big fan of Vito and has become a friend with Vito, and they talk a lot. And I hope they stay friends. Anything can happen, but he's not going up there to claim any form of that's him. He's, I have, my co-producer and engineer on my last 10 albums, Soren Anderson, is out playing the world with Glenn Hughes. I mean, he's out there playing Richie Blackmore note for note every night. That's just what it's going to take when you're part of that kind of gig. And when you're playing the songs of Wide Line and Mike Tramp's Wide Line, well, that's sort of what you have to do.
So the songs on volume 2, was it difficult to select what songs you wanted to put on there? Or are these some of your favorite songs, or how'd you choose?
Well, I mean, it wasn't difficult. There were definitely some songs that we didn't want to touch, and there were definitely some songs screaming, pick me, and that. So, and also sort of like when you mention Main Attraction, it's one of those things that you almost feel like, can they get a second chance?
Yeah, you had mentioned that you were beyond thrilled to get a second chance with these songs.
Yeah, it is because I'm not going to deny anything, and I have also said that I would have preferred to continue with my solo career if it wasn't that every promoter or every venue, plaster the White Lion logo over the post, over what is supposed to be the act coming to play. And then little by little, I got sort of pushed in to play, first of all, some of the classic White Lion songs with my own E Street band, with my own Heartbreakers band, because as a solo artist, I mean, I lean up at Springsteen, Tom Petty, Mellencamp, later on Ryan Adams. I mean, straightforward strumming, rock and roll, open chords and stuff like that. And then, I would come off stage at night playing some of those White Line songs where obviously the guitar player would not go into the Vito solos and stuff like that. And I felt I was butchering it. I felt I was doing it because it's not what the people wanted to hear, but it's also not what I had planned to come play. So it's all a matter of finding. So it became a little bit of a relief when I somehow now can make Mike Tramp's White Lion be an entity by itself or in itself. And if I would get the chance, because there will be a new English solo album down the line, maybe 2, maybe 3, that I could get a chance to come out and play those without someone screaming, play Wait, Lady of the Valley, because, that's not what it's about.
Yeah. Well, I think this album is a perfect, I mean, like you're saying, people want to hear the White Lion, but it wasn't what you want to do. This is kind of a perfect balance for that situation.
It is. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what act that can be out there and what act should be out there representing or reproducing what they were 40 years ago.
Right.
There's 1 or 2 bands that can put makeup on and some high boots and then, a lot of fire and then try to make something like, but obviously we know that's not what it is. So, but why isn't it allowed? I've sometimes made this sort of comment. It's like, there was a big hiatus from the Indiana Jones, series. And then finally Harrison Ford, comes back and it does it. Now, to make the right movie, he should be that old that he is right now. He's not trying to represent I was. So when he tries to jump, he should fall. He should not be able to do what he does in the first movies. That is a true representation of Indiana Jones that's gotten a little wiser and stuff like that. He's still driven by the interest of what he can find. And I'm still driven of the love of playing the songs and hearing them back, but there's no way that I cannot say to the rest of the band, you know what, we're going to do a different endings. We're going to extend it. I didn't know that back then, but now living with those songs, I could have felt if we had had more time, we would have gone there.
No, I think it came out great. I can't think of another artist that has really done what you're doing.
No, but nobody, I think I feel sorry without sounding like an idiot about it, that I know that there are many of my comrades from that time that is struggling with accepting that they're not 40 years younger. I mean, we accept it when it happens in sports. And like I've said this in every interview, sports people get taken off the field. And then they become sports commentators or open a car dealership or, a burger bar or something like that. And we have their memories of when they were good. There's nothing worse watching somebody run around on a field, not being able to deliver. And you know what? It doesn't happen because sports mean money, so they pulled them off. But rock and roll has given itself carte blanche. The Stones are out there, but the Stones are the Stones. There's only one Rolling Stones in the world. But I don't think a singer should be ashamed that he cannot sing the same as he did 40 years ago. There's a lot of things that I can't do that I did 40 years ago. It's just the way it is, and so on. So, it's just the way it is. So, but I already knew that at Main Attraction, if you can already hear in certain songs that I'm already stepping in to the next transformation of Mike Tramp. I mean, this is sort of like the butterfly that has another evolution. It's not just the cocoon, it's not just the larva, and there's actually some more transformations, and it would go from Main Attraction to Freak of Nature, where I sort of almost reached my top level as a rock singer with the most power. And then when I went and wrote and recorded the first solo album, Capricorn, in 96, I knew that I should sound like I do when I sit with the Telecaster and when I write the songs and the way I sing to those songs. That is the chapter and the journey Mike Tramp starts there. Now, on that long journey, which has been 25 years, White Lion has come in there and messed with me at times and thrown me off the track. And I've attempted the White Lion things almost twice before this, and it has to me it has failed because I didn't want to do it, but there were part of the show business in me that said, you have to do it, you should do it. You're out there, promoting your third solo album and you're playing for 15 people in a club. And somebody says, you know what, if you put a new version of White Lion together, stuff like that, you'll be playing festivals. And then you go to them, oh, no, but it's fucking fun playing clubs for 13 people. You're not able to make those decisions. So you give it a shot. And the first thing when I put a new version, sort of like Tramp's White Lion together in 2005 and stuff like that, when I listened back and I look back, I wanted to create a whole new band. I didn't want to represent the White Lion songs, which is basically what it was about. But suddenly I'm creating, UFO or Kansas with keyboards or stuff like that. So, the signs were on the wall just saying, it's not your time now. You're not ready to really do it seriously.
Listening back to the old versions of the original versions of the song compared to these new versions. Now, don't take this the wrong way, but I think the new versions, your singing is better.
Yeah, but I'm not taking it the wrong way because I feel it the same too. I mean, the thing is that when Vito and I sat down in early '83, and the first two songs we wrote were Broken Heart and The Road to Valhalla. Um, and I think Broken Heart is probably one of the highest songs that I would ever sing. I didn't have a foundation. I just come to America with the dream of rock and roll. And you're under the impression that you think that all it takes basic is having some guy great guitar player and you got the long hair and let's do a song and stuff like that. And so on and so on. And now when I listen back, I go, there are part of these songs which in reality are a part of what I've done in those songs and written that are ahead of its time, that maybe in reality didn't really mature before what you just said now. It's, of course, the songs proved themselves, they became hits and stuff like that. But I tell you what, when I hear myself sing When the Children Cry in 1987, and now when I go out and dedicate this song, every night, and to the kids or children of Ukraine and or other countries, at war, I feel I'm singing that song from my soul, and it's just one of those things. And thank God that most of the lyrics that I'd written and with my European background and having a sort of, even though it wasn't planned, I had a different agenda. That now singing Cry for Freedom, El Salvador, Lights and Thunder, I'm not up there doing, sexual explicit innuendos, like quantitate, all that kind of stuff. I wasn't very good at it. I came to America. I partly wanted to be Steve Perry and Steve Walsh, two of my absolute favorite singers. But there was also a part of me that wanted to be David Lee Roth. And obviously the David Lee Roth was the man who stood on stage and had invented a new way of being on stage. And but I could never I couldn't deliver what that was. I mean, I was me.
Yeah, yeah. Now your lyric writing has always, had substance to it compared to like some of your peers back in the day. Was that an issue with producers or labels at the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because it actually was, look at the bands that succeeded, look at the lyrics, and I understand that rock and roll radio and MTV and the fans were out there tailgate parties having a great time. And Ozzy rocked them, and Priest and Van Halen and Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and White Line, a lot of the other ones. And Reagan was president, well, actually, he was just about, but take off. Nobody wanted to hear serious shit. Nobody wanted in the record, stuff, like when I wrote Little Fighter, nobody really knows what Little Fighter is about, but I wanted to promote it, that I'd written it about, this fishing trawler belonging to Greenpeace called the Rainbow Warrior, sailing around New Zealand, trying to prevent the French government from doing nuclear testing, and the ship gotten blown up to pieces. And I'm just reading the stories. I say, oh, here we got another David versus the Goliath. That's what the song is about. And every fan since that day has made that song their own, man. There are fans coming to the show, that said, you know what, we were sitting at the bedside of our 3-year-old boy when he was dying of cancer in the hospital room, and his song was Little Fighter. And you go, oh God, I got goosebumps. They made it their song and stuff like that. And, when I told the band that, I've written, Cry from Freedom, I'm sort of, inspired what's going on in South Africa, apartheid and stuff like that. And it wasn't really like I was Bono or out there fighting for it. And they went, apartheid. What's that? And stuff,
Yeah.
but I had been raised by my country or my neighborhood or the local youth club that I grew up in, with the people around me, that we were very aware of the world. It's also why I feel I failed whenever I try to go in and do, real tongue-in-cheek rock and roll, beer, pickup trucks, and pussy lyrics.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not why I got into rock and roll.
yeah. Well, you still did good on those types of songs, the fun songs.
I
Have you
slipped it through. I mentioned it a few times, and I think I got away with it.
have you had any feedback from Greg or James or Vito about the new versions?
I got James's blessing. James is my best friend. And whenever Megadeth come around, I'll always show up and hang with James. And we always saw life the same way. And there were many times when I felt that when they departed the band and it all came down to business and stuff like that, that maybe I didn't look at it in a broader aspect, that hey, we've established ourselves as a band. Let's see if we can find a way. But again, unexperienced and so and sort of had to, willingly take the side of my songwriting partner, the guy who had started the band with. I can't sit here and completely honestly confirm what Vito thinks. He did give Marcus his blessing and so on. So I have a feeling that it might awaken a few wounds.
Mm.
I mean, there are times when I sit and watch a Journey with Anana Pinell singing, and I close my eyes and go, Perry is back. And I think, man, how does Steve Perry feels? Probably one of the greatest voices next to Freddie Mercury. How does he feel? Has it really, really ever been completely confirmed that that's where he wanted to be? That's what he wanted to happen. I said again, now here we're back to, the sleazy rock and roll lyrics. You almost feel like my woman went away with the pool boy. It's like, well, when he can't do it, we'll bring someone in who can do it, and he's going to be 100%. And there will be people in the 25th row that does not know it's Steve Perry up there. I'll guarantee you. You might think about that yourself. So there is one thing, and I haven't really gotten a chance to really say this in any interviews, and that is that when I turned to Vito 3 days before we were playing the final show on the first tour with the new rhythm section, and something had happened and we were backstage waiting for the power to come back, I turned to Vito and go, when we play Boston the day after tomorrow, it's the final show. I'm done. And Vito, with the classic Vito look, just goes to me, okay.
Just like that.
Just like that. Okay, and then you can say that. Now we, after the day after the show, I fly back to Los Angeles. He flies to New York and stuff like that. And I've said this many times, but I don't think people listen. There were not one person in the big White Lion machine, record company managers, publishers, merchandisers, road crew, and Vito, who says, let's just give Mike a couple of days to fucking calm down. And then we'll say, okay, how about a break right now, and let's regroup and see where we're going with the next, and up until today, and up until also to tomorrow, not one single time even in between the lines in a hidden way or a sign in the sky, has Vito ever come out with even anything that just smelled like, I would like to do something with Mike? Not necessarily a White Line reunion. There was many ways, I mean, like, I jumped the gun. I mean, if Vito had called me and in the middle of when I was doing, I said, let's do what Robert Plant and Jimmy Page did. They knew they weren't going to put Led Zeppelin back together because they felt John Bonham was too big of it. Let's do an album together. We're not going to go out touring. Let's do something. Let's see how strong our songwriting is. Not a single word, but I have had to defend every time I brought the White Lion back in one way or another, either with lawsuits that I came too close to, you're caught, stuff like that, all those things. And every time after the smoke clears, I call Vito and he tells me, you're my friend and stuff like that. We talk and we don't fucking get any further than just the weather today. But I still have to defend. And Vito has not done the courtesy both to me and the fans. And as I say that, I consider Vito my friend, and I would do almost anything for him. He has not gone out and told the fucking world that I'm not coming back on stage. I'm not recording anything else. There will not be a reunion. Instead, there's this old interview with Eddie Trunk. Eddie was part of the White Line at the beginning, so him and Vito and I have always been very, very, very close. And Vito is up there talking to Eddie. It's almost probably even 10 years ago. Oh, well, the door's not closed. Door's not closed. So but it leaves me being sort of the bad guy, but I'm not going to feel like the bad guy. I'm just going out there. I've been the only person keeping White Line alive since White Line broke up. One way or another, because you can't do an interview or anything with me without the White Line being mentioned. I've never show without somebody being there with a White Line record being signed.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just like you said earlier, it's part of the territory that's always going to be there, but you are doing it justice with this new record. Your tour starts on August 23rd, the same day the release comes out. And that starts in Las Vegas, I think it was, in the US.
It sure does. Yeah, we're going to gamble it all the way.
What your band that's with you on the road, is that the same band that recorded the album?
Marcus's. I have, again, logistics. I have a rhythm section in the US and I have a rhythm section in Europe.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
So it'll be the, American on American ground and the same band that we toured last year.
And you're going to tour in the US for, I think it was like a month, right? Ending in California?
No, it's from the 23rd of August to the 24th of October, 2 months.
2 months, ending at the Whiskey. When's the last time you played the Whiskey?
Probably, I've done the Whiskey several times as a solo artist when I've toured, and the last solo tour was in 2018. And I think I did the Whiskey there. Or else it would have been a Whiskey. But do you know the White Lion has only really played once on Sunset Strip, and that was in 87 at the Roxy. We've never been in never been in LA. We so stuff like that. So bringing that music there, it's
that's fun.
In case you couldn't come up with anything else, it has something.
Yeah. I have, as I told you earlier, I go through stuff. This VHS tape right here. This is your this is your show at the Ritz in New York. Remember MTV? And back in the day, you would record things, and it's all over YouTube now. But I got on this VHS.
No, it's classic, man. It's like they're worth gold. I have bought, like right here down in one of my drawer. I have two big shoe boxes with cassette tapes, and one of them are all the songwriting sessions with Vito. And when I get a time, I'll import them all digital and see what's there. And I
That's
mean,
fun.
it's a documentary in itself, because you will hear us sitting and me with an acoustic guitar, sometimes being the drum kit, and Vito sitting there with a Strat in front of each other, and that would be the right line as songwriting.
That's awesome. I hope you put that out one day because I love
Yeah,
to
I
hear
mean,
stuff like that.
or even if it could be powerful enough that it would be visual, that you sit and talk about it, and then you play it and it comes out of the speakers, because sometimes that extra little story, I'm sure some of the recordings stop in the middle when somebody, no, let's do it this way. But of course, this is like, to me, this is like finding, I mean, I had, when a friend of mine wrote my biography in Danish, which it's a lot about Denmark and how I grew up, and of course got the American chapters, but it's not a book that can be translated. He sent me a while ago all the interviews with my mom, and I'd never heard my mom speak about her younger years and how she grew up and moved to the big town before she got kids and stuff like that. And sometimes going back and finding these jewels in those boxes and seeing, like you mentioned before, about how you sound when you sing first time and what that eventually would end up. I mean, some of my heroes went into the studio and got it right the first time. I wasn't one of them.
Well, you're also I saw on your social media about continuing with touring, your backyard shows. That's an interesting concept. I know it's been done before, but what made you want to just do this instead of just trying to find, other venues on those open days?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, these days, you got to improvise, you got to adapt, you got to overcome to the situation. Rock and roll has not become easier, and I don't foresee our world or our level rise or becoming. I mean, I might just be on this level until the day I go out, playing clubs, playing living room concerts, playing backyard barbecue parties. To me, it really doesn't matter as long as it fits into the criteria and what is required for the band and to exist or a show like that. So we just thought, even my booking agent says, "Oh man, it's a big tour you have jumped out, and it's a lot of shows I have to follow or fill." And also because we're driving ourselves, it's a different if it's a bus tour. You can do 500-600 miles overnight and things like that while you're sleeping. If you do a show the night before and you get up early in the morning, you got to do 600 miles and then get up on stage again. You can do it, but then after you've done that 10 times, you know, there is a limit.
Is that getting harder for you these days to do those
Yeah,
kind of tours?
everything. But we're I mean, this is a band of three of us are parents. Three of us have that responsibility. Marcus doesn't have kids, but we go out there, and it's also why it worked. I mean, for example, we can end up sitting in the car for 5 hours with not talking to each other, no radio on, just in our own moment. Somebody will have headphones or whatever. We know what we're out there doing, so we save our energy and our focus to the 2 hours on stage.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
It's just a way. Who the hell can live, full power, impossible.
Well, again, the record comes out August 23rd, same day your tour starts. Great record. I, it's just, it came out fantastic. That's all I can really say about it.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate this is a record that somebody that never heard about the band and likes rock and roll could put on and go, wow, this is a great record. So you're not instantly taken back. Those songs does not represent MTV 1988. It
No,
does not represent, anything that went on there, and songs like, The Road to Valhalla and stuff like that, or even Farewell to You, I mean, we can't hide that from the day that I wrote those songs with Vito, of how many albums that I have bought, how many bands I've seen, how much stuff I have learned along the way. It just goes without, I mean, if Da Vinci came back, I mean, most likely he'll change the hair color of Mona Lisa.
Right.
I
Well,
mean, it's just sometimes it is like that.
right. It's available for pre-order now. I think there's links from your website as well as Frontier's website.
It's,
Um,
everybody knows what to do. Don't ask me about the internet. I'm a little behind.
You're a little behind on that. All right, man. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck on your tour, safe travels, and good luck on the album. It's fantastic.
Thank you, bro. The pleasure was all mine, man. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.